Communications presents Suddenlink's Community Connections Television with your host, LaDon Fuhrer, and featuring Director of Arkansas State University's Arkansas Heritage Sites, Dr. Ruth Hawkins.
Hello and welcome to Suddenlink Community Connections Television. I'm your host, LaDon Fuhrer, Regional Manager of Government and Community Relations for Suddenlink. Your Community Connections Television is your link to your community, government, and other public affairs. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Ruth Hawkins, who's the Director of the Arkansas Heritage Sites at Arkansas State University. Welcome, Dr. Hawkins.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us. We have a lot to talk about with Dr. Hawkins because there's a lot going on with heritage sites. I'm going to first let her talk about the Arkansas Heritage Sites and what they are.
Well, the heritage sites actually started about 12 years ago. And it started because we were working with about 8 counties in the region to develop Crowley's Ridge Parkway as a National Scenic Byway. And once we got National Scenic Byway status for Crowley's Ridge, we then had to start looking at, okay, what's available on Crowley's Ridge for people to do. And there was the Delta Cultural Center at Helena, there was the Arkansas State University Fine Arts Gallery and all the different programs at Arkansas State University, but there was nothing really at the northern end of the parkway, and so we began looking at what might be available to develop there and wound up with the Hemingway Pfeiffer Museum. So that kind of started the program. We restored the Hemingway Pfeiffer properties in Piggott. That a lot of people didn't know that Ernest Hemingway had connections to Piggott. His in-laws from 1928 to 1940, when he was married to Pauline Pfeiffer, his in-laws were from Piggott, and they spent a lot of time there. And he wrote portions of A Farewell to Arms in the Barn Studio there. So that became our first site, and it kind of progressed from there. So we now have essentially 5 heritage sites. We have the Lakeport Plantation down in Lake Village. We have the Southern Tenant Farmers Museum in Tyronza. Of course, we have the Arkansas State University Museum, which we've had for a long, long time, since back in the 30s. And now we have the Dice Colony and several buildings in the Dice Colony, the Administration Building and the Johnny Cash Boyhood Home.
Let's talk about the Johnny Cash Boyhood Home. That's your latest acquisition to Heritage Sites. And it is in the Dice Colony. Do you want to elaborate on that for us?
Yes, the Dice Colony was an interesting place because it was one of the earliest government experiments during the Depression. It was a Works Progress Administration project. Basically, it was an agricultural resettlement community for farmers who were down on their luck and needed a new start. And the government bought 16,000 acres of land in Mississippi County. They developed it into 20 and 40 acre homesteads and then recruited actually 500 colonist families to come and live at Dice. And a lot of people say, oh, well, that was a communal situation. It wasn't really communal so much as it was a cooperative. And it wasn't a handout from the government. Basically, it was kind of a loan because the government gave them 20 and 40 acres of land. They had to clear the land and work it, and then ultimately, from their crop proceeds, they were able to buy the land. So the goal all along was for them to eventually become owners of their own land. And of course, the Johnny Cash family was among those 500 colonists. They moved there in 1935, the year after the colony was founded.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Johnny Cash Boyhood Home because there's a big piece of history, not just the Dice Colony, which is very, very historic. Right. It sits right here in northeast Arkansas, but the Johnny Cash Boyhood Home, we all know about the pilgrimages to Graceland and Tupelo to honor Elvis, but Johnny Cash had an international appeal too. And really resonates with a lot of people. So let's talk about the Boyhood Home Project and what's going to happen there.
Well, you know, it's interesting because of all of those colony houses, there's only a few left, and it's great that the Johnny Cash home is one that is left. And for a number of years since the 60s, it has been in private ownership. And even though it was in private ownership and people could not see anything, there are still 3,000 to 5,000 visitors a year that come and just drive by. You know, they can't go in, but they drive by. And they've had people from England, from Ireland, from Norway. People are coming from all over, and there's very little right now for them to actually see. So we were able to acquire the house. Arkansas State University purchased it in May. And we are now in the process of trying to renovate that house. It will be converted back to the way it looked in the 1930s when the Cash family lived there. One of the things that's bothered me all along is the fact that all these people that are driving by and looking at the house now think that this is what it looked like when Johnny Cash lived there. It's very much deteriorated. Those homes over there are built on a gumbo type soil, and that soil moves. And so if you notice, there are a lot of homes in the Dice area that are out of plumb. They're out of alignment. They lean. And so you have that problem. Plus you have a lot of harsh conditions that have caused the deterioration of particularly the Johnny Cash house. And so people come by and they look at that and they say, oh, this is what Johnny Cash lived in. Well, it's not what he lived in. You know, when he lived there, it was a brand new house. And in fact, Johnny Cash tells the story of how the first day they got there, there were 5 cans of empty paint on the floor because they had just finished painting the outside of the house. And he said his mother sat down on the floor and cried because it was the first new house that she'd ever lived in. So I want the house to look like it looked when Johnny Cash was there. And that's what we're going to do. The house will be restored with all the original furnishings. We've been working with members of the Johnny Cash family, his younger sister Joanne, who was born in the house, has been a great help to us. She's told us where every piece of furniture was. She's told us the pattern on the kitchen, on the dining room table. She's told us the patterns in the floor cloths. She's told us who sat where at the dinner table. Wow. So it will be furnished exactly like it was, and Tommy Cash has pointed out where some of the different outbuildings were. So that, of course, will make a big difference in terms of showing people how the Cash family really lived. And then we also own the administration building in the town center. And we're in the process of restoring that building as well. And that building, the city government, the mayor of Dice and his offices will move into one part of that building. And then the other part of the building will be a museum. And the museum will focus on the history of the Dice colony, what it was all about during the Great Depression. It'll talk about how colonists lived, particularly focusing on the Cash family. And it'll talk about Johnny Cash and how the town and growing up in that town was an influence on Cash and his music.
Absolutely. You hear him talk about that in his biography and make reference to the fact that his Arkansas roots were deep and they were in his music. And
well, if you listen to songs like 5 Feet High and Rising, that was about the 1937 flood in Dice. Songs like Pickin' Time is about picking cotton in Dice. There were songs, Look at Them Beans, about the soybeans, and the one I'm Busted, about what it was like during the Depression, not to have any money. So all of that music is rooted there in Dice and Northeast Arkansas.
Well, let's talk about the music, because Johnny Cash's music is world-renowned, and he does have quite a legacy in his children and his grandchildren. So let's talk about, first, it's a wonderful goal to put all this together. It will have tremendous economic impact on the state. So how are you going to pay for that? Need money, right?
Yeah.
Need donations.
Well, that's the great thing about it. Because his music is so well known, focusing on his music is going to be the way that we raise the funds to do the restoration and all the other ongoing projects that need to be done over there. We're fortunate that the Cash family has stepped up to the plate and said, we're behind this project 100%. And they have offered, Roseanne Cash and John Carter Cash have offered to co-host our first benefit concert, which is coming up August 4th, 7 o'clock in the Convocation Center. And they have talked to a number of their father's friends and gotten all these people to come and perform basically pro bono. We're paying their expenses out of sponsorships that we're raising, but they're performing free. And they're doing it because of the love of the man named Johnny Cash. And so we have family members that are performing. We have, of course, Roseanne herself. John Carter Cash and his wife Laura will be performing. Tommy Cash, Joanne Cash. And then we have people like Chris Christopherson, George Jones. We have Daly and Vincent. We have Gary Morris. We have Rodney Crowell, Chelsea Crowell. So a whole lineup of people that are all coming and performing because of their association with Johnny Cash.
That's incredible. And it's going to be here in Jonesboro at ASU's Convocation Center on August 4th at 7 p.m. Now, how can our viewers buy tickets and get involved?
Well, you can. We do have a website. It's www.johnnycashmusicfest.com. So people can go to that site and purchase tickets online, or they can call our Arkansas State University ticket office, which is 870-972-2781, and just order their tickets over the phone. The tickets are $37.50. We had higher level tickets, and they sold out immediately, but we do still have a lot of the $37.50 tickets that are available. And so we're really hoping that this is a sellout, because if we can sell this out or at least have a really full house, that's going to make a difference in terms of who we're able to attract in the future, and it's going to make a difference in the level of commitment that we have from the Cash family. If they see that we can do a sellout crowd, then they're going to be back next year and the year after and the year after.
It's very exciting to think that an event of that caliber would be here in Northeast Arkansas annually, growing, and not only growing, but growing the project, which I know is been earmarked for potential economic development and tourism. And that's important when you can create that kind of excitement and revenue around what's already there.
Absolutely, because we're projecting that when this is restored, we'll probably attract at least 30,000 visitors a year, and we're basing that on visitorship at the B.B. King Museum in Indianola, Mississippi, and the Elvis Presley Boyhood Home in Tupelo, Mississippi. And 30,000 visitors a year would mean about 80-plus jobs for the Northeast Arkansas area, and it would bring in annual revenues of more than $7 million a year. So that's significant for the region.
That's very significant.
Not to mention the great publicity and visibility that it would give Arkansas State University. And of course, the Cash family has pledged to be involved in every way they can. Roseanne Cash has said she'd love to come and talk to classes at Arkansas State University. They want to be involved with scholarships in their dad's name. So it's going to be a wonderful partnership that just has unbelievable potential.
Well, I think it's incredible. I know our viewers will probably want to get involved, should get involved, to help see it become a reality. It's just a piece of history, and that's what Dr. Hawkins does. She preserves history because you're not going to remake it, and we're very proud of that. And if you want more information, please go to the website and go to the Heritage Sites website or contact Dr. Hawkins, because corporate sponsorships are also still available, which all proceeds raised go to the Boyhood Home Restoration Project. Dr. Hawkins, thank you for being with us today on Suddenlink Community Connections. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And thank you for watching Suddenlink Community Connections Television. I'm your host, LaDawn Fuhrer, and until next time, have a good evening.
This has been Suddenlink Community Connections Television, a production of Suddenlink Communications.